us what's happening for us in the time that we have together. So we had the simple question in this God Only Knows series to say, hey, what is God teaching us? And I think it is such a joy always when we have local teaching to be able to hear from the people in our local community to see what they have been learning and how they've been growing over this past year. And when we were talking about this with our leadership team the other day, that it might be good to have people who are sharing stories that are coming from a specific focus, knowing that many of us have, I was praying with the group earlier that there's that saying going around that we've all been in the same storm this past year and a half, but the boat that we've been in maybe has been different, and the way that we've had to navigate and maneuver has been filled with different challenges and different amazing opportunities, right? Some new things too. So we're going to be hearing from Vivian's going to be the first one on our docket about how she survived COVID. We're also going to hear from Tim and B. Keung. You guys can maybe wave as I say your name, about raising kids during this time, as well as like what that's looked like for navigating virtual church. Chris, Mottoo, and Dava are up there sharing about how they started a family huddle and what that's been like to journey through this past year with two other families and supporting each other as parents and the kids as well. And then Bertie's going to be sharing about doing life together with others, not being on this Jesus journey alone, with things like making music together with people, exercising together, huddles, that kind of stuff. And then Catherine is going to share about how all of a sudden in, almost 24 hours, our church became accessible. The whole service was online, and how she's had to navigate that with her disability, as well as just seeing the new ways that the church has been able to learn, and in many ways, what's the term, like we were forced into doing something that we should have been doing a long time ago. So Catherine's going to be sharing what that's been like for her. And then Frank Chow, who maybe some of us are meeting for the first time. There's Frank. He's out in Boston, so our other American, and he's going to be sharing about what participating in our church life over this past year has been while living in another country. So I am very excited to hear from each of them. I wanted to center us around a scripture passage this morning. We are going to read a little bit more of this passage later. It's Romans 12, which talks about how we are the body, we are the church together, and all of us has a different role to play. But I love this message translation of Romans 12, verse 9, that reads, "Love from the center of who you are, don't fake it." And this reminder that as we're in community together, and I think especially over this past year, I imagine that many of us, the walls kind of come down, right? You're in conversation with people and you can't really fake it, because we've all been through a lot of challenging things, and it's kind of forced our hand to be real together, to journey these things through together, and to not fake it. So this is our centering verse today, as we hear from others too, that we are loving each other and from the center of who we are, and we are not faking it, or trying our best at least not to. All right, I'm gonna ask Vivian to unmute herself, and she's gonna share with us what God has been teaching her over this past year. Vivian, over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Are you going to still sharing your screen? Because I only can see a lot of people. But anyway.
Okay. I wasn't sure how quickly you wanted your images up, but I can stop screen sharing.
It would be like 2-3 seconds in. But anyway, let me just start. Good morning, my meeting house Richmond Hill family. I just want to give everybody a hug, but just get the air hug for now. I want to thank you for inviting me to share how God has taught me during COVID. But I want to acknowledge each one of us had unique experience, a different level of disruption in our life during COVID. And I hope my sharing will give a different perspective of who God is during my journey with COVID. So I'm going to invite everyone down on the memory lane with me together as my journey, like how the COVID has started and what God has taught me so far. So there is a wetlands, and I called it an untamed area down the street from my house. So during COVID, we all have to stay at home, and I start to go out for a walk every morning for my holistic, for my well-being, for my sanity. So morning was a good time for me to enjoy the nature alone. So besides birds, I live in Newmarket, for those who doesn't know. So besides birds, squirrel, one morning I even came across a wolf. So we just glanced at each other and we just walk a separate way. So the first slide, please, Melissa. So, but the most exciting thing in Newmarket, like where I live, is there is a wetland and there's a turtle nesting area, as you can see, this gigantic turtle. We have about, I don't know how many, but I saw at least 4 different big turtle. And one morning, out of curiosity, it was last year when we first had the lockdown, and out of curiosity, I was just wonder where this turtle is going on this path. And I just decided to follow it. I just want to follow where this turtle is going. Maybe the next slide, please. So I don't know if any one of you ever follow a turtle. Okay, it moved really, 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 really slow. Not only slow, it paused in the middle of its path too sometimes. So a 2-minute walk or 30 seconds walk, it took me 10 to 15 minutes. As I was following the slow turtle, I was pondering on the meaning of following Jesus. Because as we would always go, COVID was a big interruption in our life. So how does it look like following Jesus like in turtle's speed, which is slow and paused occasionally? I felt like at that moment, God had reminded me during this time, slow down and pause. Because following Jesus is not always moving at the speed that I want, like always go. And I realized once I slow down and pay attention, I pay actually more attention to what Jesus and listen more deeply, what Jesus had to say to me. So that was one of my first lessons, that I was following the turtle as I following Jesus. So beginning of this year, like this is past the journey, my memory lane of COVID, and beginning of this year, I faced life and death. In mid-March, I wasn't feeling well. I experienced extreme fatigue, I had chills, and I had body ache. And I thought it was a flu because I don't have shortness of breath, I don't have headache or fever, I don't have those quote unquote general symptoms that, you know, the health keep telling people about the COVID symptom. But the fatigue getting worse and worse. And by second week, I slept almost 20 hours a day. And in the morning, I woke up drenched in sweat. So I called my family doctor, and my family doctor told me to take Advil and at the same time, try to go for a COVID test. So on April 2nd, which is the Good Friday, I went for a COVID test. The test at the doctor, the testing center, and he came over and he was kind of like testing me, and he suspected I have COVID. And he told me to go to the emerge right away. So, and after spending 6 hours in emergency unit at South Lake Hospital with all the testing, the worst experience I ever had at the hospital. And if anyone wonder, I can share later, but terrible experience at the hospital, not crowded. If you're thinking there's a lot of people, no, there's only 2 people in the waiting room. But after spending 6 hours doing all kinds of tests, they confirmed that I have COVID and pneumonia. So they gave me antibiotics for my pneumonia and sent me home. And during my time was resting at home, like combating COVID, numerous times I felt like life was escaping from my fingertip. Like at one point, like at numerous points, I told God, I have no more energy to fight. Why don't you just take me home? I'm just too tired. I'm just too tired to fight this battle. After 3 weeks of fighting the COVID and pneumonia, one morning I have a dream. And in my dream, I stepped off my house and I looked around my neighborhood. And for no apparent reason, my attention was captured at a tree that was located in between my neighbor and me. I was staring at the tree branches and it gave me a very peaceful joy and tranquility feeling. And after staring at the tree, I went out to my neighbor and my friends coming, and we were having a good time, we were laughing. The detail of the dream was not important, but the feeling in the dream I will never, never forget. Because that peace, the joy that words cannot really capture or encapsulate how it feels. It's like God was speaking to me. This is how it looks like after the COVID is finished. So when I woke up, I knew I would be fine. And I know God showed me a deep peace and joy that I never felt it before. And that dream was happened on Resurrection Sunday. So what God has teaching me from slowing down, from the suffering, from the deep peace that I have experienced. The next slide. So last week, I went out for a walk. And on the pathway, same where the wetland is, I found a newborn bunny rabbit. It was looked like lifelessly on the pathway. And as I was staring at the poor little thing, all kinds of thoughts came in my mind. Is it alive? Is it dead? Should I leave it alone? If it's still alive, what should I do? I don't know what to do. As I was deciding what to do, I saw this poor little thing was moving. It moved, like I can see it's breathing. So without hesitation, I picked it up with the tissue, took off my jacket, wrapped it around, try to keep it warm because the body was a little bit cold, and I ran home. As soon as I got home, I wrapped it with towel, and I was trying to clean it with warm water, soak it in a cotton ball, and I tried to clean the rabbit because the rabbit was lying on the pathway and it's kind of dirt. And right away, I called my friend who used to be a vet technician, and I said, what am I supposed to do? And then I call animal rescue. So as I was caring for this and holding this rabbit, I can see the green towel, the poor little thing. He was snuggling around, he's moving around, and I put him in a tissue box and keep him warm under the sun. But before the staff from the rescue center arrived, this little guy passed away. So when I handed it to the staff, I was a little bit sad, and she examined the animal, and she said, oh, it's so sad, but if you can see closely, which I didn't realize, but if you look closely at the slide, she told me there's actually a puncture wound at his abdomen. And she told me apparently an animal must have dragged the poor thing out of the nest, and it won't survive anyway. I think she's trying to comfort me. So even for the short, it was only 2 hours by the time I found the rabbit, by the time I hold it in a towel, clean it, give it love, even though it didn't pass, like he didn't survive and pass away, I was reflecting at the moment. I felt like although I could not save the rabbit, but at least he wasn't dying alone on a pathway. It was a walkway. And I was hoping that even with that very last moment that I hold this tiny little creature in my hand, this tiny little bunny rabbit feels love, rather than dying alone on a pathway. So that was my thought. Before he departs the earth, he feels love. So next morning when I walked past the same spot where I pick up the bunny rabbit, I have mixed feelings. I was sad, but at the same time, I was glad I was being part of that person to give it love. So as I continue to walk down the path, I saw new life. Next slide, please, Melissa.
Okay, we just
as you
need to
can
wrap it
see
up
from the photo,
shortly.
she can,
Sorry.
huh?
I don't mean this is awesome, but if we can, we want to protect time a little bit too. So.
Okay, yeah, 30 seconds, right? It's almost the end, don't worry. So this is where I see life, as you can see from the photo. So you can see clearly, but when I look closer, one of the box, I saw a broken turtle eggshell. And to me, I see hope. I can see there is a little baby turtle has hatched a little early. So at that moment, God has shown me new life and hope come at an unexpected time. And as I continue to slow down and pay attention, God is going to remind me the most important lessons is to seize every opportunity to show love, despite it was a hopeless situation, despite I couldn't do anything, even though I couldn't save the rabbit, but I can give it love. Even though, like during my COVID, even though my North home church, when my huddle group couldn't visit me while I was sick with COVID, they showed me love by praying for me, intercede for me, sending me flowers, dropping me food and soup. By the way, the North rocks, okay? Yay, the North. So I just want to quickly share that as a time. And this is one of my journey and my survive from COVID journey, which is only about 2 months that on my experience coming 3 months. So thank you very much. The time sensitive. Thank you for listening.
Amazing. Thank you, Vivian. It's so good to hear your story, hear the highs and the lows, but also just, I love that on Resurrection Sunday, God was teaching you about new life and the things to come. That's so good. All right, next we're going to hear from Tim and Bea about what it's been like raising kids during this past year and how that's been navigating church as well. All right, Tim and Bea.
Hi guys, thanks for having us on. Some of the big takeaways, as I guess as all kind of parents kind of had to go through, the newfound appreciation for teachers and for caregivers and for everyone that's been which we not taken for granted, but like wasn't really at top of mind prior to the pandemic. But really seeing what the teachers have to go through and dealing with the kids every day ever since without them being back at school, it's been our gratitude for the teachers and for the all the carers and workers have been tremendous respect for them. Hats off to all the teachers that are here. And for another kind of learning that we kind of did find was the patience for dealing with children ourselves. Before when they were just off at school, you kind of only deal with them after hours and during dinner time, bedtime. But when they're all transitioned and they're at school, they're doing homeschooling. Our jobs were much more intensified by having to deal with them and also our daily lives and work and everything else. So I think learning to be more patient with children has been one of our key learnings this year. And also just trying to understand things from their perspective as well. These kids they're like superheroes. They've been put into a situation which they weren't, they have no control over. They have no understanding really about what's going on, and a lot of their kind of the social circles, friendship circles, all their daily kind of activities were all kind of just confined to the house now. And for them, helping them going through that was been a little bit struggling, but at the same time, they're great. They're really adaptable. They're resilient. So they've been changing. Now they all know about the mask and the hand sanitizing, all these kind of routines that we're all accustomed to doing now. It's cute to see them do it, but at the same time, you still feel bad that they have to go through it. And asking them for their patience has been, especially children, like with their own self-control, and sometimes it's hard to kind of manage their emotions and expectations. So that's been definitely a challenge for us, and a learning point during this period. And then, learning through virtual church. I think we'll kind of go back to that when we talk about, how we can start the regrowing of the church, or once we start meeting up again. That social aspect was really a big key in their lives. We didn't really notice it until, we didn't have it anymore. Our weekly kind of get-togethers, our home church, our small group gatherings. Those are, the foundations of a lot of their social circles. And that was, a learning for us that like how important that social circle is for the kids as well, not just for adults, but for the children themselves that are used to seeing all their friends every day and then going back to or not having that, socialization with their peers and friends. And, fortunate that our kids have somewhat of a good relation that they can play with each other and have peers there. But, we do feel for a lot of the families that didn't have that social network, or the siblings, companionship for that. So yeah, those were some of my takeaways. Did you have anything to add here?
I guess basically for us, the overall thing is that God is so good. He's blessed us so much during this time, even though, we've had our complaints of having the kids at home and being stressed with them, just 24/7 with them. But it was, since last year, we were actually we sold our house and then the pandemic hit. So we were in this kind of uncertain situation where we were like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? So we were in interim townhouse rental, which had no backyard, and it was right in the thick of COVID during the pandemic when we were locked down. We couldn't even go outside to parks and everything. So that was I think the most challenging time. But at the same time, it was such a blessing that we were so overbooked with classes and extracurricular activities before, and we were I don't know, afterwards we were like, oh, we're not rushing around anymore, so we're just spending a lot more time with the kids and just quality time and being creative. And yeah, so I guess we learned a lot from that just God is good. He's always there, even though no matter what this crazy pandemic happened, he's blessed us so much throughout this year. And I guess we really grew from that. But yeah, we really tried at the beginning with the virtual church, and it was tough. We were trying to watch the church while they were doing the crafts and things, but it kind of got difficult for a while now. So we're definitely hoping and we're looking forward to getting back together again. But yeah, I guess that's what we wanted to share. Did you want to?
They miss everyone. They miss, I think with us all, we all miss seeing each other in person and socializing again. That's, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you both for sharing. I think I've heard from many families that similar sentiments, right? Of both the joy of being able to come together just with the immediate family and spend more time together, feel less rushed with less programs and all of that, but also the challenges that brings. So thank you both for sharing. It's awesome. All right, we're going to move to, who do we have next? We have Chris and Dava. Where are Chris and Dava? There we go. What has it been like for you guys? What has God been teaching you through? Let me put you on spotlight here. What has God been teaching you through your huddle that you guys created together?
Hey everybody. So we actually started our huddle pre-pandemic. I think it was middle of 2019. We started to actually talk about it. So yeah, we started to sort of reach out to some folks and saying, we're looking for a little bit more of an intimacy than what we were getting from our regular family friendly home church, which was great. But we just sort of wanted to take it to a new level. And so we were started to reach out to a couple families. So we reached out to Adela and Jeff and Sandra to ask them if they'd be interested in sort of meeting up together. And, I guess in the way that God kind of works is that, he sort of put that on our heart to really push through to that. And when the pandemic hit, we didn't really skip a beat when it came to meeting. So we would either meet in person, socially distanced in in a park or something like that right after service, or we would go to like, you know, like a coffee shop or to ice cream and sort of find a place where we could sort of be all together. And so that level of intimacy was it sort of it was created out of that whole experience. I guess in the beginning I thought that that it was going to take us a long time to really get to that part where we can actually really share about what's going on in our lives, but it wasn't more than 1 or 2 meetings before we actually started to get to like really difficult things that were going on in our lives. And I was super happy about how that sort of worked its way through. And I find that now that we continuously meet as best as we can every single week, either through a Zoom call or now that it's getting warmer, we sort of meet outside. And it's been good because we do life together a lot. We share about some like as Timothy said, like there's some difficulties with not just yourself, but going through the pandemic, but as you watch your children go through it, it's heart-wrenching sometimes to see the things that they're going through and have to go through. The kids are troopers, and they really you know, they deal with things as they come, and they don't take them to heart as much as adults do. But it's really hard because you don't know what the end result is of what things are going through, and so there's that stress that a lot of parents are carrying with them of, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decisions? And there's that anxiety that you're constantly carrying around with you, of whether it's with your child or your career or with your family or with the church. There's all of these things that they compound each other. And when we had this intimate group of just the 3 families put together, that it was good because we had this time to really share about what was going on. I guess the way that also that God works, which was really amazing, was that all 3 families, we all have girls, and so it's interesting that we can kind of share stories, and then we can sort of foresee the struggles that are going to be coming up, and so we've sort of worked through things about, you know, those like the EBGBs that I did that as a dad, like, you know, like my daughter like going through a relationship, and so now you know, some of the older girls, they might be reaching that before Rebecca does, and so we're sort of working through that as a family together about how to manage all of those things, and you know, just like all of these little things that come up in our lives. It's really good to have a family around that you can bounce ideas off, and we're all have sort of like a vested interest in each other's family, as well as raising the girls together, and just growing together. And the girls have all become a little bit closer to each other through this whole process. Mm-hmm. It's been a really positive experience. So
yeah, they've been the other 2 families have been our strength through a lot of things, like we've been going through, and each other. We're just there for each other. We comfort each other. We cry together. We laugh together. It's been great. It's great. And we love them so much.
Aw, yay. I think they're in the room.
Oh, it's okay. They know the truth. They know how we feel.
Yeah, no, it's so good. I love hearing these stories of how people have found that support and that community together during such a difficult time. That's so great. And yay, huddles. I think Vivian put that in. Certainly in the fall, we'll be looking at implementing huddles in new ways again too. That's so good. All right, next on the roster. Oh, I just had it and then I totally forgot. Bernie Chan. What has it been like doing life together with others over COVID? What has God been teaching you?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. So as I was reflecting on this, the verse from Genesis 2:18 came to mind, and this is the point where God had created everything, and he reflected on Adam being by himself, and you know, he actually says it is not good for the man to be alone. Like everything about creation was good. At the end of every day, it was good. He created the earth and the waters. It's good. Day and night, it's good. Everything was good. But then God actually says here, it's not good. It's like creation is good, but it's not good for the man to be alone. And if there's anything this pandemic has done to us is made us alone. It's pushed us into isolation. And I was reflecting back on when we lost our Sunday service. It was very, not only did we lose it, but it was very abrupt. It was without warning, and it was kind of shocking and a bit. If I look back on it, I think I was grieving the loss of that for a while, and grieving not seeing people, and really missing people. I think we've been hearing people talk like we miss seeing each other. But I think what God was prompting me, and has continued to prompt me to be, is kind of more creative, and think more about what can you do as opposed to what have we lost. Like, I know I've gone through that period of, okay, we've lost this and it's sad, and I still miss kind of that way of life. To be honest with you, it's kind of been gone for a while, but God has been teaching me to just think maybe a little bit outside the box. And God has been telling me, like, he's bigger than a Sunday morning service. He's bigger than, like, he can't be boxed in. So we can do community still. We can still do community without the things that we used to have. It maybe just takes a little bit of intentionality, maybe a little bit of creativity, and just keeping that focus on caring for people. Something I've also learned in this time is that you may remember that we've started up this prayer and care team, and we're looking for things to care for people about, right? And we had an email address, but very few people sent emails in asking for care requests, and the learning there was that the caring really will come through relationships. Like, it's very rare that someone would just ask an anonymous person for care. It takes a lot to get to the point where someone will say, hey, I need help, or hey, they'll open up and say, I'm really struggling with this. It really takes that intimacy. So how do you get to that point? Like, I think you have to continue to build relationships and continue to build community. It's not in the moment of crisis when someone's going to get to know you. It's like, you should get to know somebody and sort of form the relationships so that when a crisis comes, you're ready to help others. So I'm in this point where I've been just intentionally reaching out to people and doing it for myself too, because I am a bit of an extrovert and I miss people, and I'm doing it for my own self-care, where I'm trying to just organize doing things together with people. And I'm very grateful for the people that are taking part in that with me. So many of you know, like, I work out regularly. And so now I'm working out 6 days a week with different groups, and it's fantastic, but I love it. But it's just this thing that we do. And there was actually a disruption in our workout schedule maybe a few weeks ago, where I ended up working out by myself for the first time in probably months. And it was really weird. Like, it was a bit of a bummer to be, I got to work out by myself. I've gotten used to doing this online with people, and it's just adapting to, okay, yeah, we're not in the same room, we're not working out together, but we are together. Like, seeing your faces on the screen, it does make a difference. Knowing that you're there, knowing that you're going through it with other people, it does make a difference. And what happens is, we usually just, maybe we'll connect a little bit, or maybe we just sort of do a little bit of a chat. So there is connection, there's a deepening of relationships, and frankly, sometimes out of these relationships, we share deeper things that are sort of weighing on us, and we're able to kind of carry our burdens together. But it's just because we're doing things together, and we are able to kind of deepen our relationships together, that we can kind of do life together, even though we're apart, but we're doing it in a way that's a little bit more creative. Other projects are like, people, I think some of you know, like, we're doing some music recordings with some of these musicians. So it's nice to just kind of, again, doing something together and just being in touch with each other, and seeing the fruits of something that is worship, is great to see. So we do blood donations together. I've been part of prayer groups. I think really doing life together and building community, what I've learned is that it's possible still. I think it just requires a little bit of intentionality, which is good for me, actually. I think I've been discipled in this way, that I've been a little bit more intentional in thinking about people and caring for people, and just reaching out. So yeah, I think that's what God has been teaching me this past little while. Sorry, I don't want to go on too much longer.
No, that's awesome, Bernie.
Yeah.
And I am one of the people who have been so blessed to join Bernie in workouts. We have a boxing group together, which is awesome. And yeah, as Ed was saying, creativity, I think, is such a key to that keyword that we keep using, right? Adapt and pivot. All right, we're going to hear from Catherine next.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody this morning. My story is very different, and yet we're, as Melissa says, we're in the same storm, but a different boat, because my lockdown started in October of 2018. So I have been quite locked down for almost 3 years now. Today, when we go outside, you would put on a mask. If you saw me in one of my cameo appearances before COVID, you would have seen me with the big noise canceling earphones, because I woke up one day with a hearing disability. There was hearing loss, but the big issue was the hearing sensitivity and the incredible, like really noisy tinnitus inside my head. And I was eventually diagnosed with hyperacusis. So I haven't been able to go to restaurants or gather with people or travel or shop or anything for almost 3 years. And the specialist said it's really important to keep continuing to be connected to work and connected to things. They didn't know if it's a short-term disability or if this is a lifetime thing. And so it was really disappointing and a really huge loss when I realized that I couldn't belong to the church community unless I showed up in person. I had been thriving and really enjoying and growing with being a home church leader, being part of a good huddle, part of the prayer team. I was on the overseer board, and all of a sudden, it was like there wasn't a place for me at the table anymore. And at the same time, I was thriving at my work job. And I felt like when COVID hit that the church joined my world. So although I'm really sorry for all of the loss and there's so many different kinds of losses, economic and life and physical health and so on, because of COVID, personally, it's been fantastic for me, because I've been able to join back. All of a sudden, I used to listen to the podcasts, and Scott used to text me when you guys were listening to the podcast in the theater so that I could watch at the same time, but I was sitting there by myself, but trying to create a feeling of being there. Now, all of a sudden, I not only have a podcast, I have a whole service. And instead of being left alone for 13 hours a day while my husband went to work, we're here together. And Zoom works really, really well for me. I know that there's Zoom fatigue. I know all about Zoom fatigue, but Zoom means that the noise for me comes from one direction, and I have speakers that I can control the sound. I'm still struggling with music, but I can control that and be part of a shared experience. I've been able to be active in part of things again. And I have no more FOMO, fear of missing out, because everybody's in isolation, not just me. And it's been a time of connecting too with people that you wouldn't even normally connect with. I miss B and Tim and all the family friendly people very, very much. But it's like we did the disability in the church book study and connected with people all over the place. And there's a lot of other people like me in the meeting house that are on the outside because of various forms of disability. And so I think that's one thing that I've learned about being able to have the eyes to see who's in the community. And Bernie just said it so well, of having those relationships before the storm hits, and also just being aware of who's around and how to connect and think of creative things. So anyway, as we emerge, sometimes I think, oh, I don't know if I'm ready because my specialist has been closed and I don't really know how healed I am. I know it's gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. And so even if I am able to go fully back, I don't ever want to lose the heart for those that are missing out or feel forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amen. Yes, that's such a good word. Thank you so much, Catherine. We're going to go to our last presenter now, Frank, and then we're going to have a quick question roundup with everybody, and we're going to close off our morning. So Frank Chow, who for some might be brand new and I've never met you in person before. Yes. Frank, who are you? And what has
well,
God
thank you
been
very much
teaching
for-
you?
Yes, well, thank you for welcoming me into your church family. As I mentioned, I'm from Boston. Actually, I'm a dentist and I'm a professor. I teach here at the dental school here in Boston. And through this whole pandemic, I think one of my my main concerns, I think, was kind of like the fear of the unknown. I think I myself am a bit of a planner, and I like to know what I'm doing, what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do. And that unknown, I think, was something that's always been kind of sitting very heavy with me. First of all, the fear that the death part, yes, the physical death, but also that spiritual death, I think, is I think a greater fear. But despite the distance, I feel that that we are kind of all in a community with Christ here. I feel we're part of this body of Christ. That each one of us have a talent or a purpose, and I feel like that we're all kind of working together as a family in Christ. And I think one of the nicest things that I've seen here in this group is the huddles, and I think that was very supportive. I like to kind of give a shout out to my huddle team, Scott, Jean, Carrie. We meet every other week, and the fact that we share and we pray about our concerns, our worries, I think that really helps with some of that uncertainty that that we were kind of able to kind of refocus on other things that are kind of important, in our lives, and in a sense we do kind of support one another, and I feel that's that was very comforting for me, and very, very, very thankful for that. And kind of in reflecting upon this, there were a couple of verses that I thought I share with everyone that kind of brought great meaning to me. One was Hebrews 10:24 and 25, and I'll just read it here. It says, "And let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." And then another verse was Matthew 18:20, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I among them." And I feel that the Spirit of Christ is kind of is with us as we go through this together. So I'll keep mine short, so not to draw everybody.
No, that's perfect. You were right on time. Thanks, Frank. I think, let me just, I thought I could, I'm just not gonna pin everybody. What I'm gonna do is invite everybody to do a switch to gallery view so you can see everybody's face who's gonna share. But I love that what I see as this thread throughout, right, is that we are indeed holding this tension of, for some people, this past year and a bit has been like it's opened up a whole new world together and being in community together. And that is something that we want to celebrate, as well as have that tension of the virtual space doesn't work for everybody, right? Like it can be really challenging, and we can grieve and miss out on that as well. And it's, I think I'm not going to go through the whole scripture just for the sake of time, but the Romans 12 passage, if you have some time to read through that today, you can read through the entire chapter, but it just speaks about how we all are the body, and that we're created of different parts, and different things are going to work for some. And it's when we're able to come together as the whole that we can see God really shining in the midst of it, right? And I would love to hear from those people who just shared. If you can say in 30 seconds, what is that one thing that, as we're looking at regathering, having some sort of in-person thing, but also just reshaping who we are as the Meeting House Richmond Hill in our city, in our community together, what is one thing out of the experiences that you've had over COVID that you want our church to know? Let's start with Vivian.
My sharing was actually very close to what the verse you shared this morning. Right off, you kind of set the tone in Romans 12:9. Love what is center of who you are, don't fake it. So love is what I've learned during COVID, even with all social distancing during the time, but you just have to sometimes risk the love and just share with the people.
Mhm.
That's all.
So good. Thank you. Tim and B.
The one thing that we, so what was the question?
I love that you were ready for it. I know that feeling. What's like one thing that you want the church, your church family to know as we look towards regathering in the future?
We definitely miss everyone, and like having those impromptu lunches and social gatherings right after service when we're all there. We've definitely been missing that, and I think that was one of the kind of foundation blocks of how we got so close with the different families and the kids to have that socialization. So I think that was a major aspect that I think when going forward with reopening, having some of those kind of impromptu gatherings again will be the foundation for going forward.
Yeah, that's good. Socialization, that's the key. Chris and Dava.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that it's been reinforced through this entire period is that God is in control, and that in the midst of your anxieties, in the midst of your difficulties, that if you trust in the process, trust in Him, and that we have a family here, and that we can lean in onto family, our church family, and that we can get through this together. That we won't get through it alone. We can't survive in a box, and that's not what God is really leading us towards. He's asking us to sort of lean into each other, and that's where through that community, whatever that looks like, it could be just you and another person. Whatever that looks like, you can survive this. We can get through this together.
Great. Bernie.
Sort of what I said earlier, just I would say we got to find ways of doing life together, and it might look different than what you're used to, but don't be afraid of that.
Catherine.
To me, the early church really listened and watched to see what God was doing and joined His work. And in COVID, there has been so much injustice brought to the surface. Like there's been so many isms, racism and ableism and so on. And I feel like when you think about restoring things, restoring injustices, it's like retelling a story. And as we come through this, think about all the ways that we've been equipped, all the things that we've seen, and that we could go forward kind of with a new story, and that we can take those things and be more sensitive, compassionate, and be able to kind of go forward as a church to make the world more the way that He created it.
I love that. I follow it like a daily devotional thing that one of the prayers that they use regularly is that God restores our life, that God's story restores ours. That's so good. Frank.
I feel like we're coming back. I think we're coming back stronger, and we're coming back better. So I feel like don't give up hope, because we're almost there.
That's great. Thank you, Frank. And thank you, everyone who shared. I hope that by hearing stories of people who we know and love, that it helps us to feel seen ourselves, but also to journey together. I think that verse, Romans 12:9, is really, for me, what I feel is at the core of community, which speaks to authenticity and vulnerability and being able to share and do life together. As Catherine was saying, that's the sign of the early church as well, is just journeying together, seeing what God is doing in our midst and responding and following through with that. And that's the opportunity that we have as a church family as we look to what things might look for us new in the future, just following what God is speaking to us through one another. That's a very Anabaptist thing, right? To be listening in community, hearing our stories, and then to be reminding when we, certainly for us as our leadership team, as we're making plans, that we're thinking of both the Tim and B story of it's been really hard to journey with virtual church, and the Catherine story of like, this opened a whole new world for me now, and then I get to engage in church. and that we can hold these things in, I wouldn't even say intention, but like together, and say, what does that look like for us as we move forward? So thank you to everyone who shared and for everyone who joined. I'm going to close our time off just with a word of prayer that's from one of my favorite prayer books. I'm sure you've seen it before if you've been tracking it all this year. This has been such a gift to me through COVID. It's called Guerrillas of Grace, Prayers for the Battle by Ted Loder. And he has just this poetic way of articulating things that God is doing, which I so appreciate. So I'm going to pray that for us. And then after that, we always do lobby time on Sundays. So we're going to jump into some breakout rooms and just hang out with each other for about 10 minutes. If you're able to join for that, awesome. If you're not, that's totally okay as well. So let me pray for us to close off our time. The prayer is titled, I praise you for what is yet to be. Wondrous worker of wonders, I praise you not alone for what has been or for what is, but for what is yet to be. For you are gracious beyond all telling of it. I praise you that out of the turbulence of my life, a kingdom is coming, is being shaped even now out of the slivers of loving, my bits of trusting, my sprigs of hoping, my toodles of laughing, my drips of crying, my smidgens of worshiping. That out of my songs and struggles, out of my griefs and triumphs, I am gathered up and saved, for you are gracious beyond all telling of it. I praise you that you turn me loose to go with you to the edge of now and maybe, to welcome the new, to see my possibilities and to accept my limits, and yet begin living to the limit of compassion and passion until, released by joy, I uncurl to other people and to your kingdom coming, for you are gracious beyond all telling of it. Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, friends. If you need to head off, be blessed. Enjoy the wonders of Father's Day today. And if you're able to stick around and hang out, that would be awesome as well. You can chat and get to hear from others. Thanks again to everyone who shared with us today.